All right, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to drag and drop my logo in here, all right? And the first thing it's going to ask me is, how do I want to import it, all right? So the first way to do this, okay, is, and actually let me do this because I have to backtrack a little bit. My logo is currently set up like this, where each of the pieces that I'm going to animate is on its own layer, okay? You can either do this in Illustrator, or you can do it in After Effects. The way you would do that, and it's really kind of silly to do it this way, but you could actually have a file for each piece of your logo. Does that make sense? So I can have a file for the eyes, a file for one eye, a file for the other eye, a file for the head, a file for the text. Okay, each piece of text. If you want to animate each individual letter in the word NASA, each individual letter has to be on its own layer. Okay? Now, you can also bring it in, all right, and make shapes out of it in After Effects. The problem with that is you can't name it. Let me show you what I mean. So if I basically take this entire piece and scale it down, all right, it's all on one layer. I'm just going to call it Fort 1. Okay. If I take my logo that is one layer and I drag and drop in here, okay, I'm going to take the merged layers and I'm going to drop it in. Now, in order for me to animate individual pieces, I have to break this up. All right. So the first thing I need to do is go right into my AI piece, right-click on it, and say create shapes from vector layer. Okay? When I do this, I now can get rid of my AI file, and I have all the shapes. Here's the problem. I can't name these. Okay? So I can say, okay, what's this one? This is an I. Let me go down to let me find the text. Here's an E. Here's a T. Boop, boop, boop. I can take this and I can group them, but I can't name it, which is going to be a nightmare when it comes to animating it. All right? So I would highly suggest staying away from that technique. Instead, what I would do, all right, is let me get rid of this. And let me get rid of that. Oop, nope, undo, workspace. Reset. There we go. What I would do is do what I have, okay? So I have this, and each thing that I'm going to animate is on a layer. Now, if you want to animate each individual letter is going to have to be on a layer. Everybody following along so far? All right. So I'm going to bring this in, and watch what I'm going to do. I'm going to make my new composition. I'm going to drag my logo, drop it in. Now, this is going to be huge, but watch this. I'm going to choose my layer. First layer is right eye. All right, and I'm going to drop that in. Now, it's black, so I can't see it. All right, and actually, let me do it this way instead. Alex, you going to pay attention to me, or are you going to ask me 6,000 questions when I'm done doing this? The answer to the question is 6,000 questions. Pay attention. So I'm going to take this and choose a layer, and I'm going to choose the icon, and I'm going to bring it in. Now, it says icon/Fort logo. I can change that. I can right-click on this and say rename, and I can just call it icon if I can type. All right? Then I'm going to do the same thing. Choose a layer, right eye. Okay? Right eye. Now, you're obviously going to have to be able to rebuild this, so you could also just bring in your logo and put it behind it to kind of tap over it if you need to. All right? So now, as I do this, and I'm not going to do the whole thing because you guys don't need to watch me do the whole thing. All right? What I have now is I have the ability to have each piece that I'm going to animate, and I can do whatever I want to it. And it can be named. This would be the way I would suggest strongly / require you to do it. Just go in Illustrator and decide which pieces you're going to animate and put them on their own layers. Because now I have these here. I can also then shift-click these, and I can click and scale it down. All right? That way, it's vector, it's scalable, It's workable, and I can actually animate it, and I can label it. All right. Again, you could do it all in one file, or you could have 12 different files and bring them in. Really, it's pretty much the same thing, to be honest with you. Okay? But that's the best way to do it. You would just rebuild your logo with the pieces inside. Now, if you only want to animate the word NASA, then you just have to have the word NASA. If you want to animate each letter's got to be on its own layer so that you can do this and rebuild it. Understand? Then you have your logo. You've got it kind of recreated in After Effects, and you can go after it and start working with it. All right? You will find that at times, some of these actually might need to be converted into shapes, depending on the type of layer effect you want to work with. There are some things you do in After Effects that don't do it to AI files, to vector files. They need it to be a shaped file. But you'll find that along as you go. Have you heard a word I'm saying?
Yes,
One?
I'm listening. I promise.